On September 13th, 1999, the television program Recess aired the episode The Spy Who Came In From the Playground, in which the school administration sends a new student undercover to get the dirt on playground rule breakers. Over 8 years later, on March 2nd, 2008, The Simpsons aired The Departed, in which the administration sends a new student undercover to stop their number one troublemaker. Both feature a group of fourth graders battling against these stern authority figures who restrict their freedoms. And their primary forms of resistance? Elaborate pranks. Is this just a coincidence? Did The Simpsons turn to their one Saturday morning compatriots for a Springfield elementary tale? Did The Simpsons do it, or was it Recess the entire time? I think this comparison was inevitable, because when you think about it, Bart and TJ are basically the same character. I mean, both are fourth graders, both are fun-loving pranksters, both are the center of attention, both are dumb as rocks, and most importantly, both wear a lucky red hat. Well, at least in the old days. I guess TJ is like if Bart were less edgy and had, like, more than two friends. Actually, now that I think about it, if the two ever met, Bart would probably hate TJ's guts. It's the battle of who can be more smug. Obviously, the key difference here is that The Simpsons isn't primarily a Springfield Elementary-oriented show. It's just one of many set pieces. That being said, outside of 742 Evergreen Terrace, it's probably the most fleshed out setting in all of Springfield. There have to be at least 50 to 100 stories that take place here, much like the typical Recess episode. Typically, the Simpsons writers are apt to split into a B-plot to give Homer and Marge something to do. That's the case with The Departed today, which features a side story about Homer and his beloved loaner car. This B-plot is totally absent in the Recess episode. In fact, the one time they leave to watch cartoons, we don't even go with them. We stay at school the whole time. Not convinced there even is a world outside of the schoolyard. But this extra B-plot suits our purpose as well, since the Simpsons episode is twice as long, and this eats up some of the runtime. That said, the Simpsons version of the main plot is considerably more elaborate, containing extra plot beats. For example, Bart and this new kid Donnie start out on competitive terms. Bart meets Donnie in class and takes an instant dislike to him. Then Donnie is off in the playground showing up Bart with his pranks. This dynamic is totally absent in the Recess episode. It's like their episode doesn't start until 6 minutes into the Simpsons version, when they execute their first prank. Interestingly, both groups go after an article of clothing. Bart humiliates Principal Skinner by slipping magnets into his shoes, making him do a ridiculous dance all over the stage. Whereas TJ and crew steal Miss Finster's bloomers and run it up the Ashley's flagpole, stealing their flag in the process. I don't want to know how they got this lady's bloomers, guessing they had their own off-screen locker room sneaking. Maybe Miss Finster is banging the janitor or something, and these bloomers got left behind. Who knows? The important thing is that these pranks get the new kid's foot in the door. This mysterious sunglasses kid compliments them, and they're pleased to know that he's not a narc. This makes a good first impression on TJ, who beckons him to sit next to him in class. By the way, his name is Stone, James Stone. He takes a relatively more passive approach by being friendly and showing he's cool, trying to hook the fish. Whereas Donnie is more active in gaining Bart's confidence, taking the fall when Skinner demands to know who did the prank. This difference makes sense narratively, since Bart hated Donnie's guts, needing a grand gesture to win him over. Now that they've infiltrated the groups, it's time to see their inner workings. In both cases, they hang out high above the ground, in one case in Bart's treehouse, and the other atop a jungle gym. They sit around eating blue vines and gum from baseball cards, and both give the new kid a taste of how they operate. In Recess's case, it's a mix of smaller cons and manipulations to give them the edge. Stuff like some little bastard clock tampering, flattering the lunch lady with some stolen flowers, and taking the secret passage back into the school. As we know, all the cool kids crawl through maintenance vents to save time. The Simpsons is laser focused on the pranking angle, via a music montage of Bart's failed attempts on Skinner. Donnie's secret sabotage of Bart is more immediate and obvious, showing each prank being foiled as they attempt them. Recess takes its time, demonstrating each secret and doing a follow-up about how they've been ruined. New clock security, fenced off flower gardens. Oh no, Finster caught them venting. Naturally, both groups are deeply suspicious of why every plan went awry. And they are both looking for answers. Naturally, the Recess crew thinks that the playground snitch Randall ratted them out, whereas the Simpsons splits this role between Groundskeeper Willie and Milhouse. Randall's role in the episode is to be chased down the hallway into the bathroom and provide them a clue about hearing weird noises in there. Groundskeeper Willie, similarly, points Bart in the direction of the mole, launching his own chase scene. But the real Randall of the story is Milhouse, as Bart stupidly accuses him of being the rat and dumps him in this locker, which turns into a bathroom by Cletus. Hey, just like the Recess episode. Of course, Milhouse is part of Bart's inner circle already, whereas Randall clearly isn't. He even self-awaredly points out how untrustworthy he is. If the Recess episode were exactly the same, TJ would be accusing Gus or Vince or one of the girls, depending on which of his implicit biases are strongest. But never Mikey. He is above reproach. The key difference between the two stories is in how much info is given to the audience up front, which affects how the character arcs are constructed. Recess is structured like a mystery, where we're not explicitly told who's doing it. Although it should be pretty obvious how shady James is, like all real-life Jameses. We don't officially find out until later, alongside the characters, whereas The Simpsons reveals Donnie's intentions much earlier, after taking the fall for Bart. The Simpsons leans more into the paranoia and betrayal angle, watching Bart struggle to discover the truth. Dramatic irony. The other important difference is that James Stone is an adult, a 42-year-old man paid by Superintendent Skinner to go undercover prior to his visit. Wait a minute. Superintendent Skinner? Principal Skinner? These two need to get together for an unforgettable luncheon. Anyway, technically Donnie's an adult too, since he's voiced by a very grown-up sounding Topher Grace. But in-universe, Donnie came from Herb Powell's old stomping grounds, handpicked by Chalmers to join Springfield Elementary. Clearly, both schools are so terrorized by these kids that the superintendent went through this much trouble. I like The Simpsons' discovery of the snitch way better than Recess, calling back to the blue vines. Recess just kinda has them overhear this guy shaving and stupidly calling his boss on his janky 90s cell phone. Yeah, maybe he's not the greatest spy ever. I love how excited he is about foiling these kids' clock tampering and extra lunch portion plans. That'll show him. The two plots diverge when it comes to the ending, in terms of what happened to the narcs. In both cases, our protagonists come up with a phony plan. For Recess, the fake plan is to drench Superintendent Skinner with a hose. TJ, him being wet isn't going to help them win the contest. In actuality, they're setting up James with a fake diversion task to take the fall for the real prank. As for Bart, he plans to vandalize Skinner's house with this giant ostrich egg. Well, that was the plan until he discovered the rat. Instead, he's planning on fizzing Donnie in a giant Mentos and Diet Coke explosion. However, the actual showdowns end up quite different in execution. In Recess's case, they don't directly confront James. They just set up the real prank, let James hit the switch, and watch the fireworks. They even give Randall the satisfaction of narking on him. The furious Superintendent Skinner's scheme fails, and he fires him on the spot, humiliating him and getting him arrested in the process. I'm assuming that afterward, Superintendent Skinner was also arrested. Because, you know, he hid a 42-year-old man in his elementary school. And it seems likely Principal Prickly and Miss Finster were aware of the scheme too. I'm gonna assume this whole corrupt school got shut down, and this is the series finale. The Simpsons adds one more twist, as Groundskeeper Willie also betrayed Bart, giving Skinner and Chalmers the upper hand one final time. But this time, the rat bites back, and Donnie betrays his employer in the end. It's a bittersweet ending, as Donnie departs and suggests they should hang out together sometime. Bart never sees him again. Fundamentally, despite very similar plots, these two episodes are going for different references and homages. Miss RoeTaKa, the Ralph Wiggum equivalent, explains to the audience today's theme, then telling James, "I always enjoy students with Earth names." Recess is doing a more generalized Benedict Arnold concept about a traitor, whereas The Simpsons is clearly parodying The Departed. I would argue Recess isn't really doing a Benedict Arnold plot, and more of a spy thriller, but whatever. This is a kids' cartoon, and they're trying to get the concept out there. When you think about it, since The Departed is based on The Departed, then technically this is a question of how much did Martin Scorsese borrow from Recess? Did he turn on Saturday morning cartoons and think, man, this would be good with Matt Damon? This is The Sixth Sense and Are You Afraid of the Dark all over again. No, but very slightly more seriously, we're here to figure out if Recess beat The Simpsons to the punch. On my patented 1 to 5 butter scale, with a score of 1 denoting completely different stories, and 5 being a total ripoff, I am giving this a score of 4 butters. While these episodes end differently for the rat, and The Simpsons feature an extra layer of betrayal, both contain largely the same plot beats and themes. These elementary kids are so crafty with their shenanigans that the superintendent literally has to bring in a spy to stop them. That's pretty dang similar. I also like that, in their own ways, both James and Donnie directly foil the superintendent's plans in the end. The fact that Recess's spy is a grown adult is almost immaterial to the plot. It's creepy and weird, but the story doesn't meaningfully change if he were 8 or 10 or 13 or whatever. It's more of a story gimmick than anything. Structurally, The Departed feels like an expanded version of The Spy Who Came In From the Playground, like it was built right on top of it. It's clear that in season 19 of The Simpsons, they looked back at Recess, a series that had been dead and buried for several years, and snatched the story from its withered, child-sized corpse. Slap a coat of Martin Scorsese over it, and nobody will be the wiser. So while The Simpsons took a more complex and nuanced take on the story, we must conclude that Recess mostly did it first. Let me know in the comments what you think of these 2 episodes, and whether or not you think Bart and TJ would be best friends or bitter enemies. Is TJ just a more popular and less sociopathic Bart? Also, let me know if there are any other examples where The Simpsons did the same episode as another series. You all gave me so many awesome suggestions last time. We've had Garfield and Rocco on the back burner, but we could also go to Arthur, King of the Hill, the Powerpuff Girls, Hey Arnold. Hell, we could run it back to SpongeBob a bunch more times. Let me know where I should go next. As always, thanks for watching.